Well, you guys, we got a lot to go over, so let's get into it. Well, hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Regina and Friends Crime Chat. And today we have the number one friend here. Who we got with us? We got Miss Sammy. We got Miss Sammy. How you doing, Sammy?
All right, how's it going?
It
How's
is
everybody
going.
else?
It is going. Let me tell you what. Time flies, doesn't it?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
and let's see here in the live chat, we got Low 12 and Connie S. So good to see you, my lovely mods. We have some of the best mods on
Hi.
YouTube. Matter of fact, I'm sorry. For anyone else, I'm just going to let you know we got the best mods on YouTube. I'm just going to say it. Um, um, so, Sammy, how's your week been?
Oh, so busy. We just got done with the Boy Scouts going to the crystal mine. That was a blast. I love it.
Did you find anything interesting?
Oh, I found a lot of big crystals. My grandson found a big giant one, and I'm talking big old boulder, and it has huge, huge nodes in it that are
Oh,
the
wow.
quartz. Yeah,
Well,
really
good
cool.
evening, Ginger Girl. Shout
I'm
out
a
to
little bit of a
Canada.
rock hound.
Rock hound. Well, I'm
Yeah.
glad you guys. I'm so glad you guys enjoyed yourself. I'm so glad you guys enjoyed yourself. I just want to give a shout out and say to everyone out there, welcome, welcome. To the channel. I hope you guys enjoy the
Hi, Ginger
content.
girl.
Yes, hello. If you guys wouldn't mind remembering to hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. We are just a few people away from our first 1,000 subscribers, and it would be the best thing you could do for the channel is hitting that like button. We greatly appreciate it. So I know you've been busy with the family, Sammy, and I want
Mm,
pictures, by the way. I want
you
pictures.
got it. You got
Okay.
it.
Okay. Um, but have you been following what's been going on at all this past few days in true crime since our last live?
Yeah, well, I did watch the Rex Heuerman, um, the what do you call it? The press conference for that. I did watch that, and I was none too surprised. Um, oh boy, was it mortifying though.
Oh
And
man, that
it's good
was
to see maybe Micah Miller's case getting a little more attention to the fact that maybe she did not take her own life. I'd
yes.
like to see progress there.
Hmm.
We're getting
Same,
there.
same. And also there are a couple other cases that we haven't had any updates on. Is the reason I'm not talking about them today, but also apparently, and I don't know if it was a crime, I don't know if it was some kind of accidental death or anything like that, but we're hearing of a 16-year-old boy out of Henderson County that was found at a cemetery. No one had been, there'd been no funerals at since 2000, April of 2004, I believe. Waiting on updates in that case as well. Oh, yay! I love the vault. Tell Miss Queen I said thank you. I love the vault. She is amazing. Um, she's probably her between her and AB and just a handful of other creators have the most common sense on YouTube. I tell you what, straight up.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yes,
Well, I enjoy watching Queen. She's very entertaining and straight, and matter of fact about everything, and I really like that. I enjoy watching. Yeah,
yes. And another channel to give a shout out to is All Things Serious. Eddie, that
our
man is
buddy,
man.
our
He
buddy.
is man. He is top notch, top notch.
Yeah, yep.
Um, he is. a good person. He's a good friend, and he is amazing what he's doing with mental health on his channel. So shout out to him. Um, so okay, now back into this Rex Heuerman interview. Have you seen it yet? You have seen it yet? You said that already.
Well, I did watch it the other day. Yeah. I did watch it the other day. Very interesting.
All right. So we're going to go over it again real quick because let me tell you what, whenever this attorney started at the very beginning saying some of the similarities between Rex Heuerman's daughter's Victoria's artwork and the crime scenes, I was like, no, no, that's far fetched. Come on now, come on. But then whenever it was one after another, after another, after another, I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Is this a family that slayed together? Or was Victoria just like her father and he knew that, so he let her in on his secret? Because you got to think, she's her and Asa, which is the mother, are going on these community posts and boards, and they're posting all of this dark material.
Hmm.
Um I think it's called hardcore or whatever.
Oh,
And it is some of the most disturbing stuff you can imagine. And while there are people out here that do tend to be drawn to the dark arts, like me, I'm a nut for scary movies. Let me tell you what, I'm a nut for scary movies. Um, because I'm an adrenaline junkie to a certain degree. Whenever you're sitting there and the movie's getting, the crescendo is building up in the movie, and then all of a sudden you get that jump scare. You know what I mean?
oh yeah.
Gives you that
Yep.
little rush of adrenaline. And some of us, it can be fun to be scared. It can to a certain degree, especially when watching scary movies and stuff. But to want to be surrounded by this kind of explicit, human degrading, um, evil artwork, to actually want to put these things around you consistently, you know what I mean? There's some kind, there's another level to it, I do believe, for those kind of people. Now, I'm not talking about people that are like movie fans and have, scary posters and stuff on their wall. I'm talking about people that create artwork that is of other people or of human beings that are being, um, having horrible things done to them.
I think this speaks to a level of morbidity that
Yes,
is just unspeakable for me. I think it goes beyond just having a morbid thought or having, desire or something. It just seems to reach a little farther than that.
yes. So let's go ahead if you don't mind, and let's get into the press conference, and then because you guys, this stuff blew my mind. Like, what? And now come to find out, Asa even was part of these posts and these Reddit threads, and she deleted her accounts when her husband was arrested. Hmm. And you remember what I said about that hair they found in the duct tape, that there was DNA on it? That means it had
Yeah.
hair follicle. Do you
Yeah.
know why hair would have a follicle on it that was in a piece of duct tape if it didn't fall off your head naturally?
Was it pulled out?
Bingo. I think she got her hair stuck in the duct tape and it was ripped
Oh,
out. That's what I think. Could be wrong. Been wrong about things
possible.
before, but yeah, that's what I think. So, but let's get into the interview and see what's going on here real quick.
Called The New Evil Understanding the Emergence of Modern Violent Crime. He co authored that with another doctor. He's presently working in several forensic training programs, and he's a friend of mine,
Let me
and he's
turn
been
this
working with
volume
me
up
on this
maybe.
case over the course of approximately a year. So he's here today to do some explaining and connecting of the dots that I'm going to put out there for you with what we have learned, what we have discovered. First, I have nothing but admiration for the work of the District Attorney Ray Tierney and his task force in their use of technology and DNA. But we disagree on two very important subjects: the murder of Shannon Gilbert and the suspicion of culpability of the family of Rex Heuerman. I've been the gatekeeper in this case or these cases going all the way back to the end of 2011 until now. And I'm going to continue in that role. And just so it's clear, because we've heard critics, I have not made one penny in this case from anyone, and the man I sued has no money. We will make no money in all the work that I have done from the beginning. We're not in this for the money, and never have been. I'm in pursuit of Shannon Gilbert's killers and the full truth and the facts and circumstances surrounding all of these murders, as I've been from the beginning. I represent that family, the Gilbert family, and I represent several victims' families of Rex Heuerman who survived him and were attacked by him or stalked by him. So I'm not here today, by the way, to just speak about exclusively about Shannon, but I'm here to speak about what we have discovered regarding one of the children and the implications of that for the family. Now, look, if you're of the school that you say all that happened to Shannon Gilbert was a coincidence, all those things were coincidences and circumstantial evidence only, no matter how strong the evidence was or is, you say it's not proof enough to suggest that she was murdered, then you don't stay here. You don't need to, and you don't need to watch this conference on streaming on the internet, because you will be disappointed. Most of the things that we know happened, we know from circumstantial evidence. But what we have here is circumstantial evidence. But if you're able to accept that circumstantial evidence can be strong, as a great lawyer once said, as when you find a trout in the milk, that circumstantial evidence can be filled with right-minded inferences, real inferences, inescapable conclusions, this conference is for you. I'm thinking I had a case with a newly constructed wall which tipped over and broke a worker's legs. And it wasn't hard to believe that the wall was defective, even though nobody saw it tipping. That's circumstantial evidence. That's what we have here. You will see today that Rex Heuerman's porn is matched by his daughter's tastes, his daughter's work. You will see that we are not talking here about, what should I call it, merely murder. I say it ironically. We're talking about people who are involved and interested in torture, horrifying torture.
For those of you coming in, I would like to pause it right there for a moment and let you know, trigger warning, you guys. Hello, 13th hour. It's good to see you. It's good to see you again. Blessings. For those of you that are just coming in, we are showing the press conference from the Rex Heuerman case the other day. And some of this content, you guys, is graphic. So trigger warning. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Sammy. Okay.
Of the people we know are now dead, and many more yet to come. We are talking about the potentiality of cannibalism, hard war. We are talking about the use of porno to effect what has happened. So allow me now to pull back the curtain. You know a person by the company he keeps. Do any of us deny that? You know a person by what they read, what they look at, and that's especially today with the internet, the choices they make, of which there are many. You know about people who agree with you, what you say, what you do, who have the same experiences as you have, who have done what you have done. We know you by the friends you keep. We know you by reputation, the things which in essence reflect you and your experiences. Now,
Okay, I want to pause it right there for just a second. Sammy, would you agree to everything he just said so far?
Yeah, I would say he's got a good argument there as far as, you know, what he's putting out. And circumstantial, although it is not absolute proof, can be rather damning.
Especially when there's enough of it.
Yeah,
Enough of it falls in place and comes together.
it kind of paints a picture, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yep, it does. I agree. I agree. All right. I was just checking to see what you thought of what he was saying about association and the company you keep, and personally I have no arguments to that. None.
Really, it's going to make things very hard to ignore as far as how this looks, you know. I can't
Absolutely.
deny that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And once you see some of this stuff, like at first, I'm not gonna lie, like I said earlier, I was like, no, this is a little bit stretched, to put these things into play. But then it kept coming and coming, and I was like, wait a minute. Okay, once, twice, maybe even three times on the rare occasion is a coincidence, but it quit being coincidence after that. So, okay.
This is Victoria Heuerman. All right, we're giving out this is the first packet. There will be two, and all of this will be online as well. So if we run out, forgive me. By the way, the full color ones were extremely expensive, and we have a budget. We say that the evidence we have, and this is just the beginning of the evidence you will see today, the evidence that we have suggests that we've been sold a story by the Heuerman family. Take a look at the first page and the picture that's to the right. That's Victoria Heuerman as she tried to appear to the press when you first confronted her at the home in Massapequa Park. There she is in her little girl's uniform. She's 27 years old with a school bag draped over her, her hair in a nice little bun. Very innocent looking person. The other picture is also Victoria Heuerman, as she really is, as she portrays herself on the internet, as she actually looks. We've been sold a bill of goods. If you look at her artwork, the top page, her artwork consists that she posted online of a human skull. That's just the beginning. After the indictments, oddly enough, and you folks took the picture, you see Victoria Heuerman walking out, I believe, from her house. And I thought it was odd when I saw it. But you'll notice she's wearing a shirt that depicts, right after her father is indicted, for these murdered women, it depicts a human skeleton. That's what she's wearing. I'm going to show you what she's looking at on the internet. And please, do not indulge in moral posturing that I am merely shaming her, who is also a victim of sorts, and she is a victim for sure of her family. Don't do that because she's a 27-year-old woman who tore off the cloak of victimhood when she chose to take a handsome profit for herself and for her lawyer from Peacock for openly displaying the pretend picture of this innocent girl, little girl persona who had nothing to do with what went on in that house. She did that at the real victim's expense for a price. She herself marketed her false image. Her true self, a vastly different self, is fair game because of what she's done. What she has witnessed, what she has perhaps gone beyond witnessing, you draw the inference. I'm not going to feed it to you. You draw the inference. Here is my assistant and expert technician, Lena Odgett, who's going to explain to you these posters and how we came to acquire them and how we can be sure they are from the daughter. So I've introduced Lena, my assistant Nani, and Frances Nakotra, who's a co-administratrix for the estate of Shannon Gilbert and the estate of Mary Gilbert, and has worked with me on these cases for years. Now, Lena's going to talk to you about the technical side of these pictures.
Again, for those of you just coming in, this is absolutely graphic content. Absolutely graphic content. These images that were shown during this press conference can be triggering, but they also depict human suffering, murder, and consumption of other human beings in these pictures. So trigger warning, you guys.
We can be reasonably certain that the Tumblr blog, which is what these pictures come from, that the Tumblr account and blog in question attached to the username Vinan Dimadtour is operated by Victoria Heuerman for various reasons. First, we see from Victoria's LinkedIn her profile picture. This same profile picture is identical to a selfie posted to the Tumblr account. Vinan Dimadtour on June 10th, 2018, posted alongside art signed Victoria Heuerman, 12/1/15, as well as a clay modeling of a human skull. Second, Victoria, on her LinkedIn, links to a now defunct website with the URL www.vinandimadtour.art, which presumably once showcased her artwork. You'll notice that this website URL mirrors the username of the Tumblr account and is likely a reference to an Icelandic word or phrase, which I'll talk about later. For reference, Victoria's now deleted Instagram also used this handle username. The same website is also linked in Victoria's Tumblr's biography. If you navigate to Victoria's Tumblr, you will find a tab to view her posts, as well as a tab to view a list of the accounts she follows on Tumblr. Her posts consist of her artwork, some of which is included in the digital file that I will be sharing with everybody today, and printed for you in the packet we will be circulating. And on her Tumblr profile, a single reblog. A reblog on Tumblr is when one reposts a post from another blog onto one's own blog. This single reblog made by Victoria is from an account which specializes in the production and distribution of illustration furry pornography. The reblog post is of the user, which Victoria follows, advertising where their content can be found beyond Tumblr, right before Tumblr effected a ban on adult content. For those who are unfamiliar, a furry is someone who is an enthusiast for anthropomorphized animal characters, often portrayed in sexualized fashion. A sampling of this person's content can be found on the Twitter account ebchimera_adult. I might add that these images are not for the faint of heart. It is cartoon pornography, but it depicts various grotesque acts of bestiality. That this person produces grotesque cartoon hentai-style pornography is significant, as it is seemingly the only account with which Victoria has engaged publicly, deeming this person's content worthy of a reblog, and that according to the district attorney, Rex Heuerman himself searched specifically for hentai porn, searches which the DA described as sadistic. While Victoria's likes on Tumblr are not available for public review, some accounts are, she has chosen not to make hers public. We can look to the list of accounts she follows to inform us as to what kinds of images Victoria is viewing. Upon examination of the roster of accounts Victoria follows on Tumblr, nearly every account is focused on the circulation of furry art.
Hey, I just want to give a shout out to everyone coming in. Nana, it is so good to see you. ND317, good to see you again too. You guys, welcome. We're going over the Rex Heuerman press conference from the other day and going into a little bit more in-depth detail. And then later on today, I will have some polls posted to the community page for you guys to check out. So thank you for joining us, and we're glad to have you. Please hit that like and subscribe, and hopefully you guys enjoy the content. Here we go. Back to the news press conference.
And images. Victoria has a preference for furry pornographic material and dark, macabre art, as seen on various accounts. And I'll go into some of these accounts right now. There's Ebony Chimera, a furry porn content creator. NIEH Furry, a furry content and furry porn creator. I guess I should be thankful. A furry porn and furry content creator who links to a fanfiction account of theirs on a website called Archive of Our Own, which publishes explicit content. This person's works and bookmarks displays a preference for fanfiction with the self-described themes of graphic depictions of violence, rape, child abuse, strangulation, underage prostitution, asphyxiation, and rough sex. Squeak Squad 524, a blog which describes itself as an art blog of Yiffertons, Yif and its derivations, being slang terms used by furries to refer to pornographic content of anthropomorphic animal characters. Lilera, the account from which most of these images come, and it's an account which circulates disturbing images of gore, violent pornography, and other fetish content. The content creator describes themselves and their blog in their bio as a gore whore, with content warnings, self-described as extreme gore, hard vor, violence extreme, vor being cannibalistic imagery of a victim eaten alive. This is to quote the dictionary, the prey's flesh being ripped, chewed, or bitten, resulting in horrific injuries and often loss of life. According to a translator familiar with Scandinavian languages with whom we consulted, Victoria's account handle, Vinan Dimadtour, may itself be an allusion to eating and consumption, a disturbing reference when considered in the context of the hard vor fetish content Victoria views and follows.
I'm going to take you through a few points. The rest of them speak for themselves. But if you don't mind, there are many pictures besides what I'm showing you that she's looked at that are equally as bad, if not worse. We just thought these.
You're off mic, John.
I'm off mic, so I'm going to shot.
You want to talk on the mic and then explain it?
So just say your point?
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
Why don't you talk on the mic and say which picture and then we
just said.
all right, fair enough. I have to be able to see them. That's the trouble.
Do you want me to bring them to you?
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, the hanging one.
You can hold them right behind him.
Right there. Thank you. That's a good idea. Yes. We chose these pictures because of the significance in relation to Rex Heuerman as well as his daughter, Victoria. Take a look. It's people hanging. That's what she's looking at. But look particularly at this particular person hanging. There's a shoe missing. Sandra Castilla was found with a shoe missing. This seems to be a fetish that was indulged in by Rex Heuerman, a fetish that is depicted and looked at by his daughter.
Okay, I want to pause it right there for just a second, because while I don't think the shoe missing is necessarily a fetish, I mean, it could be, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to say it's not, but I think that our art reflects what we see in the world around us, and I just, I think Victoria may have seen a thing or two. I have to. As a matter of fact, I actually know someone who has a foot fetish, like for real, and they are not shy about it at all. You cannot take your shoes off around them. But they're harmless, and it's done in a joking manner, but it's still uncomfortable to say the least. But welcome autumn fragrance, by the way. Yes, I've heard of a shoe fetish and a foot. There's so many different types of weird kinks people have out here, and each to their own. But I do believe there's a fine line whenever people start crossing what is horror and what is intimacy. And I think that the whole family, I think that the entire family um has done this. I don't know where it started, or maybe it was both of them, maybe both of the parents. But in order for Victoria to find normalcy in all of this, it had to have been introduced to her from somewhere. And we know daddy's a serial killer. You know what I mean? Just saying. Just saying.
For sure.
What do you think, Sammy?
Yep, I agree. And well, this may be indicative of some of that. It's through her art. I also am aware, I used to have a friend that I worked with who was raised basically Muslim, or they called themselves a sheikh, but he explained to me, not, for us women in America, we don't understand the feet and the ankles are a source of, something that might turn them on as men because that's part of their religion that you don't uncover, even the feet. So, for whatever strange reasons, people can be brought up into this, even through religion, as far as the foot fetishes. Who knows? But I'm listening.
I mean, people do. They have all kinds of kinks and fetishes. I mean, different strokes for different folks. But
Right.
whenever it comes to the crossing of the line of what is morbid and what is intimate, I think that whenever those wires get crossed, whether it's by association to the people you know, or the home you grew up in, or something like that, you were exposed to it and it become normal for you, or whether or not you just got those wires crossed in some other way when you were younger. Um, no matter which way you look at it, people that lack self control, okay? People that lack self control and have these kinds of fetishes are dangerous people. Dangerous people. Because whenever you sit and you fantasize about something every day that would involve hurting another person, each day you are numbing yourself to the idea that it is wrong. every time you sit and think about something, okay, it can even be anything good. When you sit and you think about something like maybe
Like an obsession. You obsess over something.
right, right. Well, you don't even have to, it doesn't even have to be an obsession at first, Sammy. It can be something like me, oh, I wanted a new car and I had it whenever I bought my car. It took me a long time. You know what I mean? To actually make the purchase. But I thought about it and I wanted it and I kept talking to myself about it. Well, this is why I want it. It's going to be good for this. It's going to be good for this. Until one day, finally, I was like, you know what? I'm going and getting it. I'm just going to go get it because I had convinced myself that it was okay. That everything was going to be okay if I purchased this car, that it wouldn't have a great impact on any other part of my life. It was something I wanted. It was something I wanted. So I made it happen. But and leading up to making it happen, even though it was a good thing, I fantasized about it and visualized about it until I acted on it. Does that make sense?
Yep. Deep desire.
Yes. I completely agree with that. The 13th hour. I think he is absolutely uh S sadist. Absolutely. Okay. Was there anything you wanted to add to that, Sammy, real quick?
Oh no.
That's a connection. Yep. Perhaps this is a stretch and perhaps not, but look at the hairstyle and consider Rex Heuerman's hairstyle. But this is a picture of a person who's hung. Remember that Rex Heuerman is using points to hang people. This person is hung and disemboweled with a knife that's in the picture. The yep. This appears to be the remains of a human being that looks half eaten. Remember that Victoria Heuerman is on the internet reading words and looking at pictures that deal with hard vor. That is to say, cannibalism. If you look at the full color packet I gave you, there are other pictures in there that are so atrocious we didn't even put them up. Worse than what you see of people eating human flesh. In this picture, if you look, it has a strange familiarity when you see it because the torso shows that the arm is chopped off at the elbow. And the head is, of course, disconnected as well. And the body is being cut up into pieces, the hands, and so on. Who does that match? Jessica Taylor? Valerie Mack?
Okay, that's the part that got me. That's the part that got me, Sammy, whenever I was watching this interview, knowing that there were victims that literally were found like this.
Exactly.
This is the part that made me go, okay, maybe there is actually some kind of validity to what this attorney, mind you, this is an attorney. This is a person who has studied the law and now practices law and has been for a long time, that is willing to come out and make a public accusation about this, Sammy.
Oh yeah.
This is real. You know what I mean? This is real. Like that part right there, just
Well, so
oof.
far we've seen some depictions of commonality between what victims were found, how they were found, what was missing, whether it be like limbs or shoes or I get it so far. I get it.
Yeah. I mean, this is awful. This is awful. Whew.
That kind of makes it hard to ignore, doesn't it? I mean, when there's commonalities like that.
Yeah. Mm.
Entire slicing up as if it were for food. This is a picture of a female human body, completely disemboweled in the front, with her entrails hanging over her vagina and her legs chopped off. Some of the things that she was reading about, which I'm going to put before you in a moment, some of the things she's reading about was how, when these bodies were disemboweled and cut up, the torturer would have sex with the openings, such as in the leg. That's what she's reading about. Yep. This is very interesting. Here is a woman. Here is a woman who's completely garroted by the horns of a deer head, which is a favorite theme in this picture she's looking at. Deer, they have to do with witchcraft. And you can see what's happened to the woman. But notice, there's a marsh in the background, and this woman is laying on her back, just as Shannon Gilbert was found. Make of that what you will. In your
Okay, now that part I actually disagree with a little bit because it looked like a field of wheat behind the girl to me. That one I'm not entirely sure is a stretch. You know what I'm saying? But like some of the other ones, yeah, I
I
think
have
that.
not personally seen marsh for decades to make that recollection. I could only assume that's what it is in the background, actually.
Oh wow, I can understand that. Yeah, but to me, it looked like a wheat field. I mean, that looks like wheat. It was. Hold on a second. See, it looks like wheat. Well, no,
I don't
that
know.
looks
It
like
just it
cattail
to
or
me,
flowers.
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, that looks like how cattails get to look. And sometimes I do remember as a child seeing lots and lots of that, and that to me does depict the foliage you might see in
Well,
a
but
marsh.
also I grow gladiolus, and they look like that. They can look like that. I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to go with each artist observe it. The person looking at the picture being the one perceiving it. I don't know. It could be marsh, but I don't think that that's a definite. You know what I'm saying? All right. Let me go back forward where we were. The end of that. Okay. But there's
the
more.
picture there is actually artwork produced by Victoria. If you look, there's this horrifying monster with blood eating on the breast of this woman who has a furry butt plug hanging out the back. She produced this art. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, okay, thank you. You'll notice in one of the other pictures, there's a room that looks like a basement with blood all over. Sound familiar? Does it match Massapequa Park? Quite possibly.
That part. That part. Does it match Massapequa Park? Yikes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this stuff's triggering you guys. Mm-mm-mm. Graphic,
Sorry?
sorry. Some of this is graphic.
It's hard to repeat. This is a picture of what appears to be a basement with blood all over it. Remind you of the basement in Massapequa Park? I won't show them all. I don't need to. Body of a man with the arms and legs sliced off and chopped in half. Interesting.
He
Take a look at
did,
the neck.
and I apologize.
This
Some of
person
this
being
stuff
chopped up.
in this, I'm not
The
going
neck
to
is not
lie, is
just
like,
pierced; it's cut open.
why did they even put this in here?
Think about
But
Shannon Gilbert and
in
her
a
hyoid
hole.
bone. Here's what she's reading. Don't be scared, because I said I wanted to crack open your chest and play in your blood. I'm not a scary person. Murder is very romantic. By the way, remember, her father is looking at the same items. If you don't learn how to...
Murder is romantic. Remember what I said earlier about getting those wires twisted?
Yep.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I would assume taking another person's life is a very intimate thing because it's another person and you're taking a part in their demise. You know what I mean? There is a level of intimacy there, but romance, no. Ugh. No, that's not scary at all, is it? Tip Tap. Not at all. Tip Top. Extra twisted. Exactly, Connie. Extra twisted.
pull hair properly, you can easily snap someone's neck. If your communication and self-insight isn't on fucking point, dark kinks easily just become self-harm or abuse. If you tie the rope without EMT shears in reach, you're trying irresponsibly. If you're playing with drowning or waterboarding, a 2-second fuck-up can kill. The cannibal picture. Here they are feasting on human flesh, and there's the human flesh being taken apart for food. Reading. It's entitled Brutalized, brackets, hot, sexy. Being drowned in a bathtub, bonus points if it's full blood. Throat bit and crushed in someone's teeth. Arm skinned and someone pulling on your tendons to force your fingers to move. Hands being stepped on and broken. Making out with mouths full of blood. Bonus points if it's your blood and you're forced to drink it. Stabbed while in a crushing embrace that starts to break your ribs. Wrapped in electric barbed wire. High-powered shot collar and muzzle. Sedation. Enough to be in a dreamy haze while you're taken apart.
Yes, it
Blindfolded, muzzle
is.
tied down while someone cuts
Yes,
you open
it
and
is.
plays with your organs.
Absolutely, it is.
Arms strapped
Disturbing and
down, multiple
horrific.
needles left in, full of drugs, while your killer explains
Okay, let me get past this.
of what Rex Heuerman is looking at.
Okay,
And amongst them, there are 26 of them that he lists, but I'll just hit some that matter in relation to these photos and what was said on the blogs that she was looking at. Quote, girl begging for rape porn. Teen girl begging so that he could avoid identification. That isn't even true. We know he left the tattoos on, he sliced them up. He knew very well he could have just cut them off and he didn't. He's not caring too much about identification, although he is that too. These pictures speak for themselves as BDSM, and we know that Heuerman spent time, we know now, in Manhattan clubs in BDSM situations. For example, a place called Pandora's Box. When you take all of these things collectively, are you going to be able to reasonably say, well, just circumstantial evidence? Who knows whether the mother really knew what was going on in the house? Who knows whether Mr. Heuerman had anything to do with what happened to his daughter? You can take one inference is that this poor girl was brought up in this sickness. And don't think for 1 minute, from what you now know, that Rex Heuerman was cutting people up, removing their hands and heads and so on, just so that he could avoid identification. That isn't even true. We know he left the tattoos on, he sliced them up. He knew very well he could have just cut them off and he didn't. He's not caring too much about identification, although he is that too. He's enjoying what he's doing. Look at what he is reading, what his daughter is reading, what they're observing. It's BDSM to the max. And it's demonic. How else do you describe it? This house, are you surprised at the way it looked? It matches the demonic life that they're living there. Why do you think they haven't left after they know that murdered bodies were in that home? There's much more to be said on that. I say to you, you draw the inferences. You draw the inferences. But how can you escape some meaning to what we have discovered? How can you escape it? As I said, you can tell from this, we're the gatekeepers. We're in pursuit of the killers. We know from one witness that I've already
Yeah,
produced
low
to the
12,
district
me
attorney's
too.
office, who was vetted by
Me too.
Commissioner Rodney Harrison, police commissioner, and found to be credible. We know that Shannon Gilbert was in the Sayville Motor Lodge with Rex Heuerman. There's a connection between her and him. We know something that has never to this day been addressed by the Heuerman family lawyers, nor for that matter by the district attorney. And that is that I was able in January to check out the alibi that Mrs. Heuerman and children were in Atlantic City when Maureen Brainerd Barnes disappeared in July of 2007. We talked to the night manager, and I say we, myself and 3 witnesses who are present here today, 3 eyewitnesses. We spoke to the night manager for that hotel, and we checked out whether or not the Heuerman family had checked in when they would have had the alibi. They did not. They checked in not on on July 6th. They checked in on July 17th. And she read it to us off the computer that she had in front of her twice. And I brought this up, and you heard the lawyers, Mr. Matev and Mr. Macedonio, say, John Ray's a liar, and they'll prove it. That was 200 and some, how many days ago now? Since January? You never heard another word from them, did you? And I'm awaiting the district attorneys look into that. We're the gatekeepers for all the facts and circumstances. And remember what the commissioner of Suffolk County Police Department said.
Yes,
If you
they
don't want
did,
to talk to the
Low.
police for any
You're
reason,
absolutely
call
right.
John Ray. I'm operating under that official blessing, and I'm not giving up, and you can see why. These people are in our society. They're cannibals. They're monsters. They're human devils. They're evil. The Heuermans are part of that package. Now, with me, now, I mentioned Dr. Brucato, who's here to address some of the things that I have just now mentioned.
Wait a minute. Did that attorney just take a slight and call them the Heuermans? Did he just make a slight? I heard. Did you
No,
catch that? Did you hear him say the
sort of.
Heuerman family? Heuerman family?
I think he's trying to hurry up and get this over with.
Maybe, but
okay. Gary?
First of all, is everyone hearing me all right? Everyone hearing me well? First of all, thank you to Mr. Ray and his team and to all of you. And I'll begin my comments by saying that it is important that we dedicate everything we're doing today to the victims. I think it's very important to do that, to remember that we're not interested in the titillating details of what an offender has done as much as trying to prevent those horrible things from happening in the future by understanding these people. I think it's also important to mention that I have not examined Mr. Heuerman, his daughter, his wife, or any other member of the family. And the comments I'm going to make are general about the trends in these kinds of offenders and what we might be able to gauge about someone who may be potentially joining the ranks of that type of individual here. First of all, when people are charged with offenses, repeat murder, you don't get hauled into court, under a charge of serial killing, right? But it is important to understand when there is a pattern of serial killing that is alleged, we can learn a great deal about what the likely motive is of the individual and understand a lot about the individual's psychology. The vast majority of people who meet criteria for serial killing are sexually motivated. And I want you to understand that we have to envision a circle in which there are individuals that repetitively commit sexual assault against other individuals, but don't kill. Within that circle is a smaller group of individuals who are sadistic toward the individuals that they're assaulting, brutalizing them in every imaginable way, but do not kill them. Within that circle is a smaller group that proceed to actually kill the individuals, sometimes to get rid of witnesses, sometimes because the force is too much and someone passes away, and sometimes because this now becomes
slander and defamation.
But within that circle is the rarest of all, which is a sexually sadistic serial killer who kills after protracted, prolonged torture in every imaginable way. And it is in that tiny circle that we would be placing Mr. Heuerman if he is indeed guilty. It is important to understand that individuals like that are motivated partially by sadism and partially by a kind of intellectual boredom, a stimulation. People of that type, for example, can look at all kinds of things and collect all kinds of things and do all kinds of things to keep it interesting for themselves. And as a consequence, evolve and do all manner of things to their victims to learn about what happens to bodies, to see what causes the greatest thrill. Now, regarding the things that have been spoken about today, it is important to understand that about 80%, it is estimated, of serial killers operate alone. But that leaves, by some estimates, 20% that do operate with other people. That can be a group of people that are all interested in the same perversions. That can be a wife or a partner, significant other. That can be one's own child. In that small circle of cases, which incidentally do not include any in the state of New York that I'm aware of prior to this, where an individual actually has what may be a torture chamber or an isolated place where individuals are brought. For example, you remember from the document reference to hard points. hard points are those little screws that you hang a variety of tools on, like in a garage. You have to imagine a situation in which a woman would be knocked out and wake up in that kind of chamber with all those instruments around her to be used like a kid in a candy box for sadism and experimentation repetitively. And you have to imagine the potential that that's inside a soundproof room in one's own home. The rarity of that cannot be emphasized enough.
Every week, millions of Americans are filling their carts with ultra-processed.
Wow.
Be instructive for people to look into. The most important, I think, being the case of David Parker Ray, the sexually sadistic serial killer who had a $100,000 torture chamber soundproofed inside a trailer where women were brought by his own daughter sometimes after she had knocked them out for participation in perversions. Another case you may want to look at is the case of John Wayne Gacy, the sexually sadistic serial killer of boys and young men, because until recently it was thought that he was a lone wolf. And some evidence has emerged more recently that he may have been part of a network that was feeding victims to him. And there are many serial killers of that type, we're learning. There is a tendency to think that these types are lone wolves who can't have relationships with others or engage in crimes with other people. Regarding the things that were spoken about today,
Hey, Lisa,
as a psychologist, I
good to see
think
you,
it would be
beautiful.
important for me to emphasize that we have no clear accusations or proof one way or the other, but there are certainly suggestions that I think must be taken seriously. And there would be precedent for this kind of thing based on other cases. Approximately 1 in 5, according to some experts, of these serial killers do operate that way with other people. I'll be happy to answer any questions. I'll also say at the end, I'll also like to take a very quick moment to say that I am a member of the Cold Case Foundation on the expert panel. I'll clarify because I know some people are aware of the name of John Douglas coming up in the bail document as the author of 2 of the books studied allegedly by Heuerman. He is the chairman emeritus of the Cold Case Foundation, which is a group of experts that offers help, assistance to law enforcement, to individuals that petition, families that petition to help solve cold cases. I am sure, given that the average age of onset for people who commit these offenses is about 26, and they don't tend to stop until eliminated or arrested, you can imagine that it would be very improbable that there are only 6 victims in this case. And you can imagine that these individuals would have been kept for some time prior to their killing. I am sure that there are loads of people out there, probably in multiple states, who have encountered this individual, who have potentially escaped this individual, who may have actually been assaulted by the individual or engaged in perverse actions, or may have information on homicides that might in the future be alleged. I would encourage you to please be unafraid to consider prayerfully, thoughtfully reaching out to a group like the Cold Case Foundation, to someone like Mr. Ray, to law enforcement, because when this story is all over, I suspect it will be much more complicated and horrifying than it even appears to be now. Thank you.
One more. Okay. Just keep in mind one or two more things. In the packet that I gave you, the first packet, the black and white, the pictures on the back and are pictures from the book that.
You know what I just thought about? Everybody speculated that it was his brother that had to have been connected, blah, 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 blah. Remember that? Because of the 911 call. They're going to kill me. They're going to kill me. Do you remember that, Sammy?
Yeah.
What if it wasn't a him and a him? What if it was a him and a her?
But we
They're
don't
gonna.
know, and I don't think that she knew either.
Mm. This case is absolutely insane.
Was on the kitchen table when the police entered in the last warrant, and when Victoria was home alone. That book speaks of death scenes, and those are real gore, real pictures of sex workers chopped up. That's what she had on her kitchen table, and her lawyers say they don't know how to explain it. That's in this too. And one more thing, and that is that after this, can anybody reasonably infer, as we've heard over and over again to the contrary, can anybody reasonably now infer that this man was leading a double life at home? There was no double life. Now we'll answer questions.
So is it likely that he essentially psychologically trained his daughter to become a serial killer? Is that in the realm of possibility?
I can't speak to this particular case because I have not examined anyone involved. And so far, what we have here is circumstantial things that are certainly worth contemplating. I'll say this. Among the individuals that do participate with serial killer family members or friends or associates, they seem to divide up into different groups. Some of them have their own perversions and are collaborating because they, in a group, are able to enjoy these things together. And some of them are individuals who have been traumatized or exposed repetitively to these kinds of things and are joining in with the offender, sometimes as a kind of Stockholm syndrome or attempt to survive, sometimes because it's been so desensitized for them that it's become normal in the home or environment in which they're operating. And sometimes there's no relation, that they just are interested in these kinds of unusual things on their own. But you have to take that on a case-by-case basis, and I think it's certainly worth thinking about, because I think we'd agree that what we're seeing here is certainly disturbing.
In his manifest, he used the term play, and apparently Victoria used the same terminology.
Mm-hmm.
What do you make of that?
Well, it gets to the point that I raised earlier about a lot of this being about stimulation and excitement and fun for these individuals. And the idea is to extend, in the fantasy at least, to extend what is happening to the individual out of a kind of curiosity and amusement, and to keep heightening the thrill the way somebody, for instance, with a drug addiction might do, to need a greater and greater high. And some people can have fantasies like that and leave them at the level of fantasy, and some individuals need to actually spill over into enacting those fantasies. But it's impossible to say, how many people have only the fantasies and how many actually spill over. The fantasies are certainly disturbing. Sorry. Well, first of all, there are some situations I'm aware of where that happens, where, as I said, there is normalization within a home to the point that that can happen. But the themes that are here are extreme, even for people who have sexualized or aggressive fantasies, because we're seeing here themes of things like cannibalization, fornication with body parts, dismemberment, mutilation, things like that. It's not just bondage fantasies. It extends all the way over into things that are far more horrifying. And for those things to be normalized, you have to think about the kind of material a person is exposed to, the kind of pornography they might be exposed to, the kind of talk, books, etc. But I think the jury is out on what this is about. But it's certainly worth thinking about.
John, I apologize. This is obviously very disturbing to all of us, but she's still young. Do you think she was involved in any of the murders? Like, the Golden Tour, like, helped him at all? Or are you just saying that she may have been doing something and thinking about it in the future? That's not what she's about.
I am not there. I was never there. The police alone have been there in Massapequa Park House. I don't know what else they know. What I'm saying we can infer from this, and it's not the only inference, but it's a very strong inference, is that this girl was made over the course of years somehow to become accustomed to liking what you see here. And that didn't just happen in the air. That happened because somebody did something. And, you can take it from there, take the rest from there. That's what I'm saying. She certainly falls within the circle of suspicion as to some activity that's involved here, not least because we know that her hairs are found on the dead bodies.
If there was no double life like you suggest,
Her hairs.
legal ramifications?
There certainly could be civil legal ramifications for the Heuerman family, each of them. They're pretty extensive, I imagine. I'm not looking to pursue them myself. I'm not looking to sue them or have a civil case against them. It's nothing to do with me. But there could very well be, yes.
John, are you saying that Shannon believed that Shannon Gilbert was a victim of Heuerman?
I'm not saying that Shannon Gilbert was certainly a victim of Heuerman. I am saying what we do know. And we know if that witness who was credible told the truth, the taxi driver, that Heuerman knew Shannon Gilbert. And that makes a lot of sense. If we follow the trail of Heuerman, I know that Heuerman was a very gregarious fellow from the witnesses I've talked to who've come and talked to me and given me statements. And I know that he spent a lot of time in various bars and places where there were strippers and dancers and that sort of thing around Long Island and in New York City. The chances that he came across Shannon Gilbert, besides what the taxi cab driver said, are excellent. She also has a Massapequa entry in her book that we found, her notebook of scheduling. And I point out another thing. That doesn't preclude anything I've said so far regarding my lawsuit that's continuing as we speak. There's connections that could be made there. We don't know. I'm not the police. If they come to me, I'll certainly report them. But it does strike me that when Shannon Gilbert says, the first thing she says on the 911 tapes is, someone is after me. Someone is after me. That means she's being chased. She's being stalked. Rex Heuerman was a stalker. You may remember from the beginning, before I even knew of Rex Heuerman, I said publicly over and over, there's a hunter involved in this case. Someone was hunting her. He's a hunter. Rex Heuerman turns out to be a very avid hunter. And he belonged to a variety of rifle clubs. We saw a picture, I think, Newsday published. But there's more than that. If you look at the schedule that Ray Tierney put out, you can see that Heuerman, in a period of 2 weeks, was at 3 different hunt clubs. He's a real hunter. He's got 300 guns to do that. I have 3 eyewitnesses who say that he pulled pistols on them. One who says that he shot her right across the back of the neck. He's a hunter with guns. Who knows what else? Start to put those pieces together.
The DA said that the hairs found that matched Victoria's were transferred from Rex to the victim.
I don't think the DA said that the hairs were actually transferred. He speculated that they were transferred. The hairs transferred from Rex Heuerman to the body the hairs that belong to the daughter and the mother. He's speculating at that. He has no way of knowing that for certain. But now when you consider what you've seen and what you know, that might tip the card a little bit in favor of the fact that there might be more to it than just.
Okay, I want to make a comment on this comment. What Low 12 said, Sammy. Gee, I bet he started in his 20s after animals. You know what I'm thinking, Low 12? I'm thinking it goes back a little further than that. I'm getting complete Dahmer vibes from Rex Heuerman.
Yeah.
Dahmer vibes, which means this probably goes back to his, yes, Low 12, either his late teens or his mid-teens, late teens, or his early 20s. I can agree with that.
Yeah.
What do you think, Sammy?
Oh, yes. Well, this kind of speaks to, I'm kind of glad they did this press conference because there's a lot of people that the people involved in this investigation would prefer you not know this. And this is worth knowing.
Sorry, will
This
that
is
I gotta
this
quit
is
reading these
worth
comments.
knowing. Um, these are important details, regardless of how much they might want to say, "Oh, this has nothing to do with that." I beg to differ, and I can't help but agree with this attorney. He's trying to, like, it's like the noisy wheel gets the oil, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
I'm going to be really honest with you. It took Miss Gilbert's mother years to get them to listen to her, to find her daughter, until she threatened to go to the media.
Mhm.
And I really believe that is also a part of Heuerman's work. I just can't help it, but I don't
I
blame
do
her for
too.
feeling that way
I do
or
too.
at that time.
But we can't ignore the reason why these cases went unsolved for so long either. We just can't.
Right,
The police that were investigating this case had relations with these women. And whenever these women went missing because they had relations with these women, well, what would that make them?
right.
And let's face it, it's not a good look when you're a police officer and you're visiting one of these ladies of the night and they go missing. Not a good look.
Yeah.
And sadly, I think this is going on a lot in America, to be honest, Sammy. I think that half of these places are so concerned with, what's it called? Brotherly camaraderie?
Camaraderie. Yeah.
Camaraderie.
Yeah.
Um, they say, oh, well, I know this person's not a killer, so I'm just going to sweep this under the rug and hide this for them, you know, because I know this person's not a bad person and they're one of the boys in blue with us. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they hide something. Well, it turns out either that person did commit the crime or some part of them was involved with the person and then these cases go cold. They go cold. Whether they were maliciously and intentionally and willfully hiding the evidence because they thought that the person was guilty or whether they were doing it because they thought they were innocent. This is happening everywhere and a lot of these cases are going cold. I do agree. I appreciate that the attorney spoke out. I do think that a lot of this was so graphic. Um, Now going through the whole press conference, that it wasn't the best for uh, broadcasting because it is very graphic.
Well, it's the
But
ugly
that's one
truth.
of the things that come with. Yeah, that's what I started to
It's
say.
the ugly truth that really people should know. I can't agree more.
Yeah, yep. I think that the furry thing thrown in there was a little much. I don't think that that really has anything to do with one with the other at all whatsoever because those are two very different demographics of
Can
kink,
I say
if you will.
something on why I think that maybe that was mentioned? Because I
Yeah.
do believe while they're exposing all of this, I truly believe that they are also looking for connectors, things that might connect people within a specific community or secret society to help people to understand part of where all of this is coming from or leading to, or the participants, quite possibly, so far as a lifestyle, maybe. But I
Well,
think that was the purpose for bringing it up. I really don't think
it
that it was
all,
them pointing a
it,
finger.
right. But it all comes from deviancy. Every
Right.
bit of it. Every kink that we have, everything that would be considered taboo, all of these things are, um, what's the word I'm looking for?
Okay,
Deviancy,
so
yes.
for
But
the average person would not be thinking along these lines, and I think he's trying to introduce to the
mhm,
public the fact
right,
that people are living these lifestyles and
yes,
that it is an important factor.
right.
I'm done interrupting you, sorry.
No, 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 no. And I see where you're coming from. I completely see where you're coming from. But Sammy, that's a lot of ground, a lot of distance to cover from going from being someone that dresses up like an animal to get their kicks and someone that does the kind of things that were depicted in that other art for their kicks. You know what I'm
But it
saying?
could be part of the soup. That's all I'm
Well, yeah,
saying.
I agree with you there. I agree with you there. It could be. It could be part of the soup. Yep, you're right. I do. I completely agree. It could be part of what leads to the other parts of the sickness, or maybe even, you know, maybe uh dad seen what Victoria was interested in, was like, how can I further um how can I further correct her? You know what I mean? Maybe him seeing his daughter interested in weird stuff made him think, well, how much further? You know what I'm saying? Do you think
Well,
that's a
no, I
possibility?
think honestly believe that there's a possibility that maybe he realized she's like him in her mind, maybe with the morbidity and maybe
Mhm.
discovering that kind of it's like feeding off of each other in a way.
Yeah. Well, depravity is depravity, no matter what color you paint it. Depravity is pravity. It's like putting a lipstick on a pig. At the end of the day, let's face it, it's still just a pig. Yes, I absolutely agree, Ginger Girl. I absolutely agree. Animals eat other animals in reality. Dehumanization takes on many forms. Yikes. Yes, it does. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Dehumanization. Wow. I completely concur. Completely. Okay, let's finish this real quick.
Just that they fell off of Heuerman, especially when you notice from the equipment that he took was designed, part of it, to clean up the hairs. And he even said so, and to wear a hairnet.
John, a lot of this art is disturbingly similar to the Gilgo victims, but as far as we can see, none of it was actually made by Victoria Heuerman. Did you look into who the creators of this art might have been?
Yeah, we know that they create this atrocious art for a living, but you're not quite right. Take a look at what I showed you earlier. She created the monster that's eating a woman's breasts with a furry butt plug in the picture. She created that, and that was in line with everything else. So I can't agree with you there. She's in this art. I cannot hear you, Daniel. What I did was, with this particular information, I notified Ray Tierney. I wrote him a letter, invited his detectives to come here if he wished to the press conference, and invited him to call me so I could do so. I have not heard from him. So we're just going forward with what we have. I at every step of the way in this case, I have cooperated with the authorities. I have given them what I'm entitled to give from other witnesses. The witnesses who come to me, if they don't want their information turned over to the police, I don't do it. But if they give me permission, I always do it. I believe that the proper authority for properly investigating this and getting to the truth is the task force. We good?
So you said countless times that all this is for justice for the victim. How is showing these images, to sum it up, justice for the victim?
Showing these images teaches us that there is a likely connection between Rex Heuerman and his family in these crimes that have been committed, and that the truth is going to reveal that. We don't know how far those connections reach. We do know if they do reach through the family. Number one, he's not isolated. He's not acting alone. Number two, therefore, he is not, as I said before, living two lives. But number three, we should start to look at his wife, his daughter, where they went, who they met with. Things, it opens up this door. I have information. I know where his wife went sometimes. So that whole door is now opened. And there's one inference from at least some of the witchcraft things she talked about in her paperwork and so on. There's an inference. It's one inference of many that there's more than just them, that they're involved with other people in this as well. That needs to be looked at. These people didn't tell the truth. They're misleading us.
So basically, this portrait was created by Victoria. Of all that you've shown us, this is the one she created. Is that correct?
Yeah, the picture of the monster and the woman that I mentioned is created by Victoria. Everything else she erased. We don't know what else there is, but we do know that.
So was this found in the house and taken out by detectives?
I don't believe it was found in the house, but I don't have their inventory. I don't know. But that's on. We connected it, as Lena has told you and explained to you, and we've given you that explanation in detail for your use because I know it was highly technical. You can see that she can connect that with the other things that Victoria was looking at.
Are you sure she created it and not just posted it?
Her signature actually appears on it.
Doc, can you just say and spell your name?
Yeah, sure. I'm John Ray, Johnray. Now the doctor.
Dr. Gary Brucato, Gary, B as in boy, Rucato. I'm currently a visiting scholar at Boston College, where I conduct forensic research with Dr. Ann Burgess. And I'm in private forensic practice, and I'm in private practice for general psychotherapy at Clarity Therapy in New York City. I'm a clinical psychologist and an author and researcher specializing in violent crime and severe mental illness.
If you need a packet, if you didn't get one, just give us your email. We'll give it to you. We have it. So you can have everything. Good. Thank you.
Okay. So that was the end of that one. Sammy, what do you think? After seeing everything that he just presented, and knowing that Asa, his wife, also had an account and deleted stuff, do you think this is a case of possibly the family participating, or do you think that whenever dad was accused of being a serial killer, they wanted to get rid of all their kinky computers?
Well, I don't think that you can rule that out entirely, albeit rare. It's still a possibility in my mind. We just don't know. And that is the truth. We don't know. And I really do want, okay, if this press conference had not taken place, I would have never been aware of these things, because
Right.
that is not something that I would have continued. Had I found something, I'm really not for sure that I would have continued to dig deeper. And as a lawyer and trying to get to the truth, I could see them digging until they couldn't dig anymore. And I really feel like these things are important. I really do. And I think
Ginger
that
girl, what a
nobody
scary
wanted,
thought. What
yeah.
a scary thought.
Well, we're learning in these rings where they're trafficking people, that's typically what happens. Most of the time, a younger female will lure the victims. There's
Yeah.
always that chance. Yeah.
We've seen it done. That dad that married his daughter, had the baby with her. Y'all know which one I'm talking about?
Oh, that was
Um,
so sad.
Edward. Yeah, you know which one I'm
I
talking about. I
watched
can't think of their names.
Lost Girls. If anyone is interested, and someone suggested it last week to us, and I watched it. And this gives you a general idea of this case for Miss Gilbert and some of what her mother went through, and some of the some things were dropped in there about law enforcement, members of law enforcement, maybe going to these parties, who knows. But I watched it, and it kind of, I don't know. It did help me to understand it a little bit better, what was going on, as far as the mother trying to say, hey, look, my daughter was one of his victims, I believe, is what she was trying to say. So, Lost
Yeah.
Girls. I don't know if it was on Netflix. I can't even remember at this moment. But the more we know, knowledge is power. And these are facts that really, I honestly believe, needed revealing. And
I agree.
maybe law enforcement didn't show up to this press conference because of the content, because of what it's going to reveal. It's an ugly truth, but I can't blame the family for wanting this out, and the
Yeah.
lawyer.
Yeah. I mean, I think as victims, these families have a right to speak up and speak out.
Exactly.
Ginger girl, the Epstein case. He had a woman as his lure. That is very true. Yep. You're correct on all of that. Absolutely. Mm-mm-mm. Now we're fixing to get into the second part of today's live stream, you guys. Sammy, did you have anything you wanted to say else about Rex Heuerman before we moved on?
Oh no, I think you done good. Thank you.
I 100%. I'm gonna just say it. I 100% at this point suspect it was a family affair. A family affair. I don't think that Asa was oblivious. I don't think anyone in that household was, to be honest with you, at this point. I mean, and now we know he went so far as to try and keep it away from the home at some point because he had this basement and this torture chamber. You know what I'm saying? And now some of the things that are coming out they found there, I'm like, this dude was really, he was all in on this. He is a level of depraved. Um, I don't see how. I don't see how his wife could have missed it, if that makes sense. I don't see how his family could have missed it. I don't think they
Okay.
did now. I don't think they did now.
No.
Okay. So now we're going to move on to the Rachel Morin case. Um, if you'll remember, Sammy, I told you, um, and I believe I said it live. I got called uh, a racist by a couple of people for stating that I thought that it was likely an illegal immigrant that did this and they were traveling. Do you remember? I told you I thought they were traveling from one set of family members or, in their community or their group, people they knew within the United States. And I said that he would likely travel south and then head back out, closer to Mexico. Well,
Right.
he did just that. And it was, in fact, an illegal immigrant that did this. Um, and it wasn't someone that wanted to come here for a better future whatsoever. And this is what I was talking about whenever I talked about it previously. This is not, it has nothing to do with race, it has nothing to do with politics. Okay. The fact of the matter is, anytime that you don't protect your community from people that you don't know, this could happen. It has nothing to do with politics. I understand some people are saying, oh, this press conference turned political. Well, no, it really didn't turn political. The fact of the matter is, he stated a very obvious problem that we are having, you guys. And if you'll listen, whenever this detective is talking here in the interview in just a minute, two people, both linked to the same families, both of them had people come in from Salvatore or whatever it is and kill people in the community that were illegal immigrants, which tells me they need to keep an eye on the people that were associated with both of these people, because obviously this is what they're going to bring into the community. And that's why I think we all should be aware of it.
Now,
But
is it true? Is it true that he also had killed someone over in El Salvador before he came here?
yep, yep, he was a
Okay.
murderer before he ever come into the United States, before he ever came over to the United States.
Yep.
And that has nothing to do with race. It has absolutely nothing to do with race. Because let me explain this. People come across that border that are from all kinds of other countries illegally. Not just people from Mexico, you guys. Not
Right.
just people from Guatemala and South America. They come from all over the world across the southern border. In this case, it did just so happen to be someone that was from Mexico. Okay? It did. But normally, that's not the case. It's from all kinds of other countries. These people come here illegally and commit crimes. And typically, the countries they're from and then come into America illegally and start committing the same crimes. And I don't think this is this gentleman's. We have to claim. Oh, Lord. um, it's all kinds. And these people, like I said, typically commit these atrocious crimes in their country, and then they flee here. What does that say about America if this is the place all the criminals flee to, you guys? What's that saying about us? Sammy, what do you think?
Well, it's pretty clear that no background checks were ever done on anyone who's coming through. I mean, technically, otherwise, I think had it been known that this person was had murdered someone before and quite possibly were wanted over there, they may have found that out and prevented this, quite possibly.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
right. And that's not political, that's common sense. It's common sense. It doesn't matter if you vote for him, her, he, she, him, her. It does not matter who you vote for. This is not political. This is a real problem that is staring us in the face. It is staring us in the face. 1,800 miles from the border. And this woman, Rachel Morin, was murdered by someone from that border, from across that border. Okay? This is serious. There were no fail safes in place. There was no documentation or even knowing that this man was a murderer. A murderer. And let's not forget he attacked, I believe, a 9-year-old girl and her mother in California. Right? Now think about it. He's been from California. Oh, I'm
To
having
Maryland.
to
To
Baltimore. Right.
Maryland.
Right.
Yep.
To Maryland. I had a brain poop. A brain pooped. He went from California to Maryland. Think about how many people along this way that we don't know are his victims yet.
Right.
And then he went to Virginia and then made his way all the way back across to Tulsa, to Oklahoma. You remember what I said about the path he'd take, Sammy?
I do. Vaguely, but I do.
Wow. It's terrible. It's
Well,
terrible.
remember, there were times where these people were bussed on buses from place to place, hundreds
Mm-hmm.
of miles away.
Yeah. He murdered in Mexico and chose to flee to America. Think about what I'm telling you. And that's the sad part. A lot of these people that are coming across this border, they are committing these crimes in other countries and fleeing to the United States because they know they can come across that border undocumented and have no problem moving around freely in the US. And the US has a lot of ground to cover. A lot. You can get lost in the US. They do it every single day. Okay. Was there anything you wanted to add to that real quick, Sammy, before I go ahead and start the interview?
No, proceed.
Okay. I think I am gonna speed it up just a little bit. Actually, no, we're gonna leave it because it's only 31 minutes. So we're just gonna get this. And I'm sorry, I think it's in monotone. I apologize for that in advance.
Good afternoon. I'm Christy Hopkins, Director of Media and Public Relations for the Harford County Sheriff's Office. I thank each of you for joining us today as Sheriff Gaylor announces long-awaited and much-anticipated updates in the murder investigation of Rachel Morin. Standing and offering remarks with the sheriff are Bill DeBagno, Special Agent in Charge, FBI, Baltimore Field Office. Evan Campanella, Assistant Special Agent in Charge, HSI, Baltimore Field Office. Allison Healy, Harford County State's Attorney.
Twisted Tea is a refreshing, hard iced tea made with real brewed tea. Keep it twisted.
Also in attendance are Colonel William Davis,
Gotta love
Chief
the ad.
Deputy, Harford County Sheriff's Office, Sergeant Christopher Maddox, Criminal Investigations Division, Harford County Sheriff's Office, David Hughes, Deputy Chief, Bel Air Police Department, John Cook, Chief of Staff, Washington, Baltimore, HIDA, Patrick Vincenti, President of the Harford County Council, and members of Rachel's family. After Ms. Healy concludes her remarks, Patty Morin, Rachel's mom, will offer a few remarks as well. She will not be taking questions today. We know that you have many questions for all of us. Please keep in mind that we will try to answer as many as we can, but this investigation is still ongoing, and there are some details we cannot discuss at this time. Again, thank you for joining us, taking your time and dedication to telling Rachel's story. And with that, Sheriff Gaylor.
Thanks, Christy. Good afternoon, everybody. As Christy said, I'm Harford County Sheriff Jeff Gaylor. As everyone's aware, on August 6, 2023, our peaceful Harford County community was rocked when the body of Rachel Morin was discovered in an area just about a mile from here, just off the Ma and Pa hiking trail here just outside the town of Bel Air. In addition to the impact to our local Harford County community, Rachel's murder gained national and even international attention. The young mother of 5, whose life was violently taken in a public location, is one of the safest places in the state. It's not supposed to happen, and it shouldn't have happened. In the days and months since Rachel was murdered, Rachel's family and friends, our Harford County community, and the men and women of the Harford County Sheriff's Office, along with all of our allied partners, have worked tirelessly to bring the individual responsible for her death to justice. Our deputies and our partners have worked this case with persistence and passion for Rachel and for her family every day over the past 10 months. Just over 3 weeks ago, on May 20th, on what should have been Rachel's 38th birthday, and in a poetic coincidence, or perhaps in Rachel's own divine assistance, our investigators uncovered a lead that led us to this day. And on this day, I'm here to tell you, Rachel's murderer is no longer a free man. Hopefully, he will never have the opportunity to walk free again. The lead we received was related to DNA evidence and allowed investigators to finally put a name to the image of the suspect in the video from Los Angeles, which we released 2 weeks after Rachel's death. After we had the video, we knew what he looked like. We knew what he looked like, but we didn't know who he was. With the new DNA evidence, now we know who he is, but we still didn't know where he was. As I have stated many times, this killer could have been laying his head in any community in the country or even in the world, and indeed, that was completely accurate. Over the past 2 weeks, investigators continued their diligent investigation and tracked our suspect all the way from Prince George's County to Tulsa, Oklahoma. Our investigators also obtained an arrest warrant yesterday afternoon, and as the arrest warrant was being issued, we met with Rachel's family, many of whom are with us today, to update them on the case and asked of them an almost impossible request, and that was to keep the information about the identity and the arrest warrant to themselves and protected, to allow investigators the opportunity to try to apprehend this suspect before it was made public in the news, so that our suspect did not have the opportunity to learn that he was wanted and to once again flee. 5 hours after meeting with the family, and just before midnight our time, police in Tulsa, Oklahoma, assisted by our federal partners, located and arrested Rachel's murderer, Victor Antonio Martinez Hernandez. So far, we have learned that the suspect, now pictured on the screens, is a 23-year-old citizen of El Salvador who illegally crossed the border into the United States in February of 2023. We all suspected that perhaps Rachel was not his first victim. And it's my understanding that this suspect, this monster, fled to the United States illegally after committing the brutal murder.
Sammy, do you think there are going to be more victims in his wake?
I would not be surprised if there was. Not at all
Especially
surprised.
since he was obviously looking for women to hurt in parks jogging. How many cases do we know of where a woman has been attacked in a park?
Oh, there's been many over the decades. Yep.
So this is a man that actually went to, I guess you would call it the prowling grounds to look for victims. It's not going to surprise me if he did it in Maryland, and we know he attacked a mother and a 9-year-old daughter in California. You know, there's probably going to be somebody every pit stop, everywhere he stopped. There's probably likely to be a victim, sadly,
Quite possibly.
because these men don't slow down. They only escalate once they do these kind of things. What do you think, Sammy?
Oh, I agree. And people like this that are doing these sort of things, this is like a compulsion, an obsession, and an urge that must be fulfilled. It doesn't go away till they take care of that urge. And I just believe that some of them take advantage of any opportunity that they can and lose sight of the fact that, they're going to get caught eventually. But I just feel like there's a chance anywhere he stopped.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
especially him knowing that he's not going to be staying there made it that much easier for him to
It made it, and
perpetrate.
he was anonymous. And
Yeah,
he was
yeah,
anonymous.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, Sammy.
Murder of a young woman in El Salvador a month early in January of 2023. Once in our country and likely emboldened by his anonymity, he brutally attacked a 9-year-old girl and her mother during a home invasion in March of 2023 in Los Angeles. And as everyone I believe is aware, that was our first DNA match linking Rachel's case to the Los Angeles case. It has been a fear of mine that once we identified this suspect, the result would be exactly this. And I want to now direct these comments to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and to every member in both chambers of Congress. We are 1,800 miles away here in Harford County. We are 1,800 miles away from the southern border, and the American citizens are not safe because of failed immigration policies. This is the second time in just 2 years that an innocent Harford County woman has lost her life to a criminal in our country illegally. Let me repeat that. 1,800 miles from the southern border, and this is the second woman in our county to be killed by an illegal alien. Suspects, in both cases, they are suspects from El Salvador with ties to criminal gangs. Should not be happening. Victor Hernandez did not come here to make a better life for himself or for his family. He came here to escape the crime he committed in El Salvador. He came here and murdered Rachel, and God willing, no one else. But that should have never been allowed to happen. Moving on, I want to make it clear that this case does not get solved, and we do not bring this criminal to justice without the amazing law enforcement teamwork from our local, state, and federal partners. And I mean that in all sincerity. Rachel's homicide does not get solved. There is no arrest without all of us working together.
A few days ago, some officials in Washington, D.C. issued some rules for
And for that, I want to thank everyone here in the front of the room and all those who aren't here, but I'm going to cover a list in a minute. I want to thank all of them for their assistance to our agency over the past 10 months. We are profoundly grateful for your dedication and support. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, especially the Baltimore Field Office, rendered invaluable assistance throughout the course of the investigation. Similarly, the State Police, Maryland State Police Crime Laboratory contributed greatly with their expertise and resources. I must also say thank you to the Los Angeles Police Department, the Department of Homeland Security, Naval Criminal Investigative Services, the Maryland State Police Bel Air Barrack, the U.S. Marshal Service Fugitive Task Force, the Harford County State's Attorney's Office, the Maryland Department of Natural Resources Police, the Bel Air Police Department, Maryland Coordination and Analysis Center, the Baltimore Washington HIDA, the Tulsa, Oklahoma Police Department, El Salvadorian authorities, and the many law enforcement agencies, both state and local, who provided invaluable assistance to the Harford County Sheriff's Office during this investigation. As I think is evident, this was truly a comprehensive law enforcement effort, and I am exceptionally proud of the work done by the collective team and countless others who made last night's arrest in Tulsa possible. I also want to thank the members of our Harford County community for their patience, support, and cooperation throughout this investigation, to include hundreds upon hundreds of tips that our investigators have received. Today, we were able to provide what some like to refer to as closure to Rachel's family and for our Harford County community. I want to thank the members of the Morin family, and you're going to hear from, as Christy said, from Patricia here in a minute, but no questions. They have been by the side of our detectives this entire time, doing anything that they could do to help the investigation and to help our detectives, to help bring this individual that took Rachel's life to justice. I recognize there is nothing that will ever close the door or bring true closure concerning the loss of Rachel, but it is my hope and the hope of all involved working this case that the arrest of this suspect brings her family and our Harford County community some peace. I would like to now ask FBI Baltimore Field Office Special Agent in Charge, William Debano, did I get it right? Debano, to offer a few remarks.
Yes, thank you, Sheriff Gaylor. Good afternoon. My name is Bill Delbano. I'm the Special Agent in Charge of the FBI Baltimore Field Office. Today, our focus remains on Rachel, bringing justice for her, finding answers for her family and loved ones, and making sure the violent criminal who so viciously took her life cannot harm anyone else. The FBI is proud to stand united with our partners in the Harford County Sheriff's Office as we announce this arrest. We know nothing can take away the pain and the anguish Rachel's family and friends have endured. Please know, on behalf of the FBI, our hearts are with you. To the public, keeping our community safe is one of the FBI's highest priorities, and so are the invaluable partnerships required to accomplish this. During the investigation, here's what I can share from the FBI. Our investigative genetic genealogy team in Baltimore worked countless hours to identify the suspect by using crime scene DNA and tracing that DNA to potential family members. Investigators even traveled to El Salvador as part of their efforts to identify this killer. To find the suspect, we've provided technical assistance, helping to pinpoint his location. And that brings us to last night, where Tulsa police and FBI agents were able to successfully apprehend and arrest the suspect in Oklahoma. Harford County and the investigators on this case worked every angle, tirelessly and constantly, never giving up and following every lead and piece of evidence. We thank Harford County for their partnership and bringing us into the investigation. As Sheriff Gaylor outlined, we thank everyone who helped make this arrest possible. To all those who have been waiting for an arrest to be made, for answers, we hope this brings a sense of justice and some peace. The FBI vows to continue to work every day to keep our community safe and prioritize the partnerships so vital to doing that. Thank you. I will now turn it over to Evan Campanella, the Deputy Special Agent in Charge, HSI, Baltimore.
Thank you, Sec Del Bagno. First off, I would like to thank Sheriff Gaylor for having HSI present for today's announcement. Today's announcement is the culmination of almost 1 year of investigative activity that might not always go noticed by the public. This investigation highlights the cooperation and the collaboration HSI has with its state and local and federal partners. And I'm happy to be here today with Sheriff Gaylor and our partners to announce the arrest of Mr. Martinez Hernandez. I hope that today's announcement, as the sheriff pointed out, will help bring some closure to Rachel's family. And again, I would like to thank Sheriff Gaylor for asking HSI to participate in this investigation and to be here for today's announcement. I would now like to invite Harford County State's Attorney, Allison Healy, to the podium for her remarks.
Good afternoon. I want to commend the Harford County Sheriff's Office and other assisting agencies on the hard work, expertise, and diligence identifying and apprehending the suspect in the murder of Rachel Morin. They worked tirelessly on this lengthy and difficult investigation for the public safety of our community and bringing Rachel's family peace, knowing that the next step is prosecution. I will personally be leading the prosecution of this case. While the defendant is innocent until and unless he is proven guilty, Harford County and our neighboring communities can rest assured that my office will take all steps necessary to ensure that justice is served for Rachel Morin and her family. We have already begun coordinating with the Warrant Apprehension Unit of the Harford County Sheriff's Office to handle the extradition of the defendant to Harford County. And once the defendant has been transported back to Harford County, prosecution will commence. Thank you. It is my pleasure to introduce to you all Patricia Morin.
Hey, how's it going? Just got a new shipment in here from YouTube. As you can see, I'm so excited to open these. And now I've got a bunch of these already, as you can see right here, but I'm really excited about.
Sorry about that.
I'm going to make this really short because I'm very emotional. I just want to take this time to thank all of the law enforcement for all their hard work. I know that a lot of times we don't see what goes on behind the scenes. You know, you see the policeman in the car when you write you a ticket, but you don't see the real work that happens behind. And around Christmas time, we did a canvassing with Harford County, thank you. And they brought us into a room and I could see all the people that were involved. And that's not even all the external agencies that were involved. And it just gave me such hope that they really did care about our family and my daughter, that they were going to work diligently to find the person that murdered her. At one point, when things seemed like really bleak and hopeless, the lead detective said to me, he said, patience will win in the end. And that's what they've been doing. They've been diligently working very hard, and they've been patiently working through all the leads. And it's because of that that we have an arrest today. So I'm very thankful and just very grateful to these men. And I'm also very grateful to the press because you kept her story alive so that people would still continue to send in tips. And that helped them to do their job. So I want to thank the press as well. But I don't know if this is, oops, sorry about that.
You're right.
I don't know if this is kosher or not. I'm going to step away from the pulpit. But I think we should applaud them just because I am so grateful that they have brought us to this place. Because at some of the points during this, I didn't think that we were ever going to have an end, that it was going to be a cold case. So I would like to applaud them.
I could not agree more.
Thank you. And
Me either.
it's a case that touched us all. So with that, we are going to take some questions. As Christy said, this is still an active investigation. So there's some things that we're not free to speak about or won't be speaking about. So with that, does anybody have any questions that we can answer for any of the speakers?
I have a question. I want to know if you can, and I know Sister kind of went into it a little bit, but what actually happens with him right now? I feel like we read an ice hold. I don't know if you're familiar with that term or if you can kind of educate me on it.
I'm very familiar with ICE detainers.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not sure.
Yes, we are a.
What's the status?
There has been an ICE detainer filed on him because he is in this country illegally out in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He would not be deported before answering for these charges. So I honestly believe that's the last place he wants to go. I think, a sad statement is our jails are better here than they are in El Salvador. And he's going to spend, God willing, the rest of his days behind bars.
How was he able to get around from El Salvador to LA to here to PG County, apparently, Tulsa?
Investigators are still working. I mean, he worked a few odd jobs that we are familiar with. Did not live a very, expensive lifestyle. But this is a free country. You can, once you're in it, you can move from one jurisdiction to the next, very freely. And he did that from El Salvador into the United States to Los Angeles, unfortunately here to Harford County. And again, down in Prince George's County, we had him in the Virginia area, and then all the way out to Tulsa, Oklahoma. And in the year he's been in the country, a little year plus, who knows where else he's been. And it's a fear of mine. It's a fear of our investigators. And as Patty said, our investigators took this case to heart, as they do all the cases. But this case, they took to heart, and they worked so hard and have an emotional tie to it that I got off on a tangent. That they.
Hey, Sammy, I'm going to hit you with the creepy thought.
Okay.
Do you know what his most likely route to get from Virginia to Tulsa was? Right across us, sister.
40. I-40. I mean,
Does that
for
creep
one.
you out? Yeah.
Yeah, I've been thinking that the entire time. We both live in Arkansas.
Yep.
And Oklahoma is right next door. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And he came from Virginia.
Yeah.
How creepy. How creepy. Ugh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I lost my train of thought.
Does he have connections to any of these areas?
Investigators are working that. We certainly know he has connections down in the D.C. area, both Virginia and Prince George's County. But again, as he moved around the country, there were places that we believe he probably had associates, and he has ties to known gangs. So we believe that's how he lived his life.
You mentioned a few, but how many total crimes or victims are police aware that this man?
That's where I was going before. We fear all the time. The investigators fear that we're going to stumble across another crime that just hasn't been tied back through DNA or some other science or electronic, tie, that the evidence just hasn't reached the point where we get a hit. But right now, what we're familiar with is the crime in Los Angeles, the home invasion in March of 2023, the homicide here of Rachel in August of 2023. And I believe in Tulsa, he's facing some local charges as well for last night. I think trespassing or disorderly or something to that effect. We're not familiar with any other. I'm not familiar with any other charges. No, in El Salvador, there is a what's called a red notice. A red notice, which is basically an Interpol warrant for his arrest to bring him back there to stand for the homicide of the woman in that case down there.
Can you speak to the collaboration with the El Salvadorian authorities? How did you all do that?
Well, and I gotta defer to our partners at the FBI on that one because they did most of the international.
Thanks, sir. So the FBI has personnel that are positioned throughout the world. They're called legal attaches. And we have a legal attache that is in El Salvador. As we were conducting some of the investigative actions along with Harford County, some of the investigative information took us to El Salvador and working with our partners there in order to understand some of the familial ties that are down there, and also bring together back a better understanding of the red notice that Sheriff Gaylor brought up as well.
Do you know anything about the victim in El Salvador? Is that something you knew, or is it random?
I don't have any information on that.
Can you go to detail how he was arrested in Tulsa? Was it a traffic stop? Was it something that happened?
As I understand it, there was about, I don't know how many hours they're behind, 2, 3, Tulsa. So it was midnight our time, and he was hanging out at a business park or a storefront, and the police encountered him, and apparently there's a charge of, did we say trespassing, and he was identified during that arrest and processing.
You know, Sammy, hold on, let me pause that for a second.
But that's been
You know, it's crazy because Robert Brashers, when he got caught in Paragould trying to break into that woman's house after he cut her phone lines with a gun, he had a trespassing charge, but we know he had already committed murders too. Whoever's property he trespassed on might just be very fortunate, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It's crazy.
A question since the outset, was Rachel's homicide random or targeted? And again, I don't know that we have that answer explicitly or completely, but at this point, there's nothing to indicate that anyone other than him was involved. We do have some belief that he spent some time here in the Bel Air area, so he may have seen her and her more or less routine operations. One of the things that we caution people, particularly women on the trail, about doing was developing a routine where it can be predicted where you might be. That would be my suspicion. If he decides to talk throughout the course of the days ahead to either investigators or prosecutors as it moves to that stage, we may learn more about, was it just an opportunity because he was on the trail when, unfortunately she decided to go out exercising that day, or was it something more specific? As to the motive, we've been tight-lipped, I guess, about it. The charges in the case are first-degree murder and first-degree rape. Yeah. And as the colonel just reminded me to say, we do have right now in the air, we have sent investigators to Tulsa, Oklahoma, to follow up on many things related to this investigation. It's very active and ongoing, as I said. He will be extradited here eventually, and that will be done. That process has already been initiated, but it could take, as I understand, to the state's attorney, 10 to 30 days. 10 days if he doesn't fight it, 30 days if he decides to fight it, but he will be extradited. 30 to 60.
I want to ask about genetic genealogy. It sounds like it. Yeah, it'll find it. I'm not really sure if we really hear of that so often with cases, like cracking cases, especially ones that you've been working so hard to figure out. So can you kind of just walk us through how that played a role? Seems pretty major.
Absolutely. So I think a lot of folks know genetic genealogy or investigative genetic genealogy in some of the cold cases, and certainly
People don't realize everyone in the world
from
uploads their DNA to these
the
sites.
Golden State Killer, and since then a lot of investigations on the cold case side. I think folks should also know that we prioritize the violent crime cases that are current, and that this is an game-changing investigative tool to understand when there are dry holes and there's no other leads to go, that we can apply the investigative genealogy to identify potentially family members, and then in doing that, take it on to a step where Harford County and our partners can conduct interviews to better understand who the potential subjects are and narrow down that scope. We also use it on, unfortunately, the victim side when we can't identify a victim through any other means, and building out the cases that way. We've seen over time 130 cases thus far since 2018 that have had successfully used investigative genetic genealogy.
There's no traffic. There's no traffic.
What was he charged with? Also, you said trespassing.
Well, he was encountered by the police and the agents for the FBI who were out there looking for him. So they had an idea of where he was. But I know that from that encounter, there's also a local charge of trespassing, not in a vehicle. He was apparently at that business, I guess, unwantedly so.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
We already had the name. We had the arrest warrant. So when they encountered him, they knew he was wanted. So he was picked up for that.
So basically, he was snooping around private vehicles, trespassing on property, probably, going to break into them or whatever, and got caught. Interesting.
No living being should ever eat processed food for every single meal of their life.
That's true.
Oh, certainly, this is the more serious, the loss of life. California will follow up on their investigation. They would have to direct questions to that police. It's LAPD that is handling that as far as specifics to their investigation. But certainly, we have been in communication. Our investigators have been in communication with theirs. They are aware that we identified the suspect here, and by identifying our suspect, we have their suspect, they have their suspect, and they can move forward on charges. They would also file an arrest warrant on file. So, I never want him to leave Maryland again. I want him to die in the Maryland prison system. We don't have the death penalty. So I just hope he spends the rest of his days there. But if he ever got out of this one, he would be sent extradited to California. And if he got out of that one, there's still the red folder, the red notice, where El Salvador would want him back, and ICE has marked him for detainer. So he would go back there to face those charges. I do not know. No. Actually, the major in the back is shaking his head. No, he does not. And again, we shared the picture. You all will have the picture. It's going to be, no doubt out there on social media. So we're still looking for information. He was in this area for at least some period of time. And when I say the area, he was in the Bel Air area for some period of time before or right after the homicide, or both. So if people still have information, and now that there's a name to put with the face, investigators still want to talk to you. We still want to know. We still want to build that timeline, because there is a case to prosecute, and we want to put all the pieces together so that Miss Healy can do her job most successfully, and again, ensure this guy never sees the light of day.
Did he ever have any contact with police before this in Bel Air?
Not that we're familiar with. Thank you all, and again, thank our partners. To have Rachel's family here means so much to not me. I mean, to me, of course, but to the investigators who work this case tirelessly. I appreciate that, and I appreciate all of our federal, state, and local partners. So with that, thank you.
I have one bit of housekeeping for everyone too. We made a decision earlier today that we are not going to share this suspect's photo on our social media. It was here. If you have, if you would like a copy of the flyer, you can send an email to media@hartfordsheriff.org and I will send it to you if you would like to use it in your newscast, but we will not share his picture on any of our social media. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you again.
All righty. So there you have it. I knew this was coming. I knew this was coming. I'm grateful that obviously his DNA profile was somehow in the database, maybe from the crime he had actually committed in Mexico. But I'm grateful that they've taken this man off the street. But I fear there are more victims in his path. What do you think about
Well,
everything, Steve?
yeah, I agree with you there. And it could be as simple as there are members of his family that are legal here in the States that may have somehow, some way, given up DNA, whatever, who knows. But our highway, I-40, runs east to west and connects 85 and 15, which goes from California to the Carolinas. So West
Yes.
Coast to East Coast. So, there's a lot to consider as far as him going all the way up there and then backtracking back down here where they found him in Oklahoma. It's pretty scary.
Yeah. Well, you heard what the officer said, the lead detective, I believe, or chief, that he had ties to drug cartels.
I'm not surprised. Yeah.
Yeah. And we know those are everywhere. And those can be, I mean, it's not just one group of people. It's not one ethnicity of people that do this drug trade. So he
Right.
could have been laid up at anyone's house. We don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
legitimately anywhere.
Right. But I do
It's a
have
scary
to
thought.
say this, in so much as each individual, irregardless of what they belong to, who they belong to, as far as groups or societies, this is a choice, a personal choice they've made. So, they need to be held accountable for their choices and their actions.
Well,
And
here's
you're in
an
the
even
States,
worse one for you, Sammy.
you're in the States and you're not immune.
What has he done to other illegal immigrants that didn't come forward
Right. Right.
because they were illegal here in the country, that have
Right.
not stepped up and said, this man did this to me or this man did that to me, or were in the country illegally and ended up not alive anymore? And
Yellow,
nobody's looking for them. Nobody's looking
we've
for them
we've had
because they were here legal.
we've had task forces in the state of Arkansas who are keeping track of gangs. And you're not wrong. MS-13,
Yep.
is big, especially out here.
Especially in the
So
Rogers area too. Yep.
it hasn't gone unnoticed, and they are doing all that they can. I do know that. And I do want to commend the law enforcement in this because really it's no easy task to get where they've gotten with this. And I really, really am grateful.
Me too. Me too. They did wonderful. They really did. Law enforcement did their job here. They really did. And I'm so glad that they got the FBI so involved. I'd like to see that with other cases.
Oh, yeah, I think it benefited them greatly. Good police work.
Yeah. very good police work. And I think they honored Rachel's family in the police work that they did as well. I really do. She was beautiful. Um, I really think that she was a victim of opportunity, sadly. I could be wrong, but considering this guy was, bouncing from here to there across the country, he likely was a predator going to grounds, you know what I'm saying? Where he knew people would be vulnerable and alone during,
Right.
certain times. And I think
Right.
that he probably has other victims of opportunity um in his proverbial belt too, under his belt. Sadly, um, this is what we find happening too much. It's just one is too much. But now that we have the communication and the ability to talk about these crimes and stuff, well, it's what can we do to fix it? That's what we got to think about. All of these things, how to identify the problems, what we can do collectively to stop the problems, and what we can do individually as people to stop these kind of things from happening. And I think it all goes back to the old phrase, Sammy, wouldn't you agree? If you see something, say something.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's better to say something and maybe be wrong than to not have said something at all and you could have been more right, couldn't have been more right about something. You know what I mean?
I agree. I
Ultimately.
completely agree. Oh, Sammy, final thoughts?
I like the content here was informative and I appreciate the effort gone into presenting this because if we don't talk about the ugly truths, we're just going to be covering up and hiding and ignoring more important facts.
Yep. Um, Also, you guys, I'm working on something to put out. It's about all of the missing people from Poplar Bluff, Missouri. I think there's something going on in Poplar Bluff. I think I stumbled onto something. Um, and I'm still working um, with law enforcement on another case. And I'll have some updates for you guys pretty soon in that case. Um, it's the Gina Brooks case. Um, so hopefully we'll have that to upload pretty soon too. And as usual, we'll be covering all of the latest updates in these cases that we've been covering. Um, Anything else, Sammy?
No, I just want to thank everyone who showed up, and I want to thank everyone who is on re-listening later. Thank you so very much. Please press the like and subscribe and share this. Thank you.
And with that, I'd like to leave you guys with a little bit of wisdom, what I consider words of wisdom. The people around you that you watch do things to other people, they will do to you. That is not um, something that is just said. It actually holds a lot of weight and it's true. Whenever you see people do things that make you not want to be around that person for one particular reason or another, the problem is usually deeper than what you're seeing because we only see a scratch the surface of what goes on in these people's lives. Even whenever it comes to cases like this, and we've got a diary from Rex Heuerman, there's still more beneath the surface. And I have a feeling that the more and more the paint that gets scratched off the surface, it's going to be even worse than we could possibly imagine. And there are going to be these people that come along and say, well, yeah, this, that, and the other. These people did this. Well, why weren't you saying that before? It's time to speak up. If you see something, say something. And be kind to one another. A simple act of kindness can save a life, maybe even your own. Share a smile and save a life. And with that said, you guys, I appreciate you all for joining me. Please hit that like and subscribe on the way out if you haven't. And as always, friends, have a great Sunday. Blessings and good night.